Now we will begin class. It is Thursday, and this is the Thursday lesson in the way of the Bodhisattva, concerned with the charya of the Bodhisattvas, the conduct of the Bodhisattvas, and our developing an ability to practice in their mode. And the behavior of the Bodhisattva is learned, developed through listening, contemplation, and meditation. And this is our time for those.
That is you do another time. Just junjuk lobsang junjuk di ani to you on the tape tin na xin chin pe. Jeje de zo ani ma dig de se wa mare. Rangi ba ombe nyamnyung de garam khatu and man de she jab sung sha ba chre se ran de you do and the paget siki yoba machine to she yabna yang ani des kya mate ni do ani de yor chedan ko yase chumbo shiwala korangi khales nyamne khale chigi yoba khaduk sen ba chamba khaduk ka sung sha ba o de sin sung sha ba en ji cha de yor eso.
So then the way of the Bodhisattva, the Bodhicharya avatar, this lesson doesn't follow from the ordinary presentation of material collected, composed in book form. It's not that way, for it is the expression of Shantideva's in direct expression from experience, in another direct expression of experience, presented as natural expressions of direct experience. And so then to provide explanation of the meaning of the text, hewing entirely to the words themselves wouldn't quite fit its meaning. For Shantideva expressed the contents of this text as direct expressions of experience.
Oh, you do the and then around that thing was drink it's like a share Jodi and it's Chanju Junju Nana, Lavia, just Chanju sent the Joba and the Tango Chanju Sem Lover Chanju Sem Jula gave us a Kenny and just say Joba love down. Tango Chanju sent the Doba, Malan Gona, and just Chanju sent the Joba Lavia Sito, and just say Chanju sent the Jobati. And in around the Tango Rami Turbache, Turbit turned and then so you. To some gom, Rangi Gula Jeva Ched, or the Dichi was a Jazz and use and the Jobal Latan Shady or Resonance.
So then, in this class as it is, and the topic as it stands, drawn from the behaviors, the conduct of the Bodhisattvas, these behaviors of first developing the mind of awakening, training in the mind of awakening. But before one engages in the very enactment of the mind of awakening, before adopting the vow of the Bodhisattva, developing the ability to first engage in such conduct, the familiarity with which comes from study of a text such as the way of the Bodhisattva, study then informing a person that they have material to reflect upon. Reflecting upon it, then they develop the mind of awakening. So this is a presentation of the teaching, instruction in the way of the Bodhisattva.
Jen Pen, Majena Nimi Yuvas, the song. And then Chanjusem gets honey, Jebate, and then my never said to Suna, Masuna, Chanjusem Yambe Nimi. Suna, and Chanjusem Suma Pen, and Manyaba, Chanjusem Manyaba, soon to be pain. Oh, the diggers about on my barge and soon be a response.
Then the pitfalls of never developing the mind of awakening, the advantages of developing that mind. So then disadvantages and advantages to the mind of awakening. Then with the development of the mind of awakening bodhicitta, the necessity to preserve it, failure to preserving it, leading to the downfalls and pitfalls of its abandonment, then developing the mind of awareness, of awakening, and then preserving the mind of awakening.
람지 림바 곰세다 람 곰세도 아니 곰단 칸데 공거스나 람 코라 랑규도 깨버신 아니 공거해서
The paths with their stages upon which one meditates, the meditation, how it would proceed. Meditation proceeds through developing the very meaning in the mind, one's own mind.
돈이 곰세다 미다보 곰세다 다음에 곰세도 거기 유지 진단기 유도 체는 아니 고매들에서 진단 유지 나바시하고는 고매들에서
Nyambar Shapa.
Number Shawamata, number Shaw.
Number Shiba.
To share.
La number to shadow. Number to shadow. Ale Yudins number to shadow.
What means lava share on a Congo? Sit down, you see the Congo.
Then you know. Emptiness, momentariness, impermanence, and meditations upon these, meditation upon the absence of the self. Such meditations are meditations upon ways of apprehending an object.
Oh, yes, and that you come down, you jump come down, or that he can share with your.
One must distinguish between meditations on objects of apprehension and meditations that are exercises of the object possessor or the cognizer.
Oh, yes, that another to share where they just Chanju Sim Gondan Shaggy or Chanju Sim Jula Gag, Junior the Chamba, and Chanju Sim, all the day you do, Eugene comes with Shaggy or Sedan, the Hindu to Jula Kenny commanded.
Here, meditation on the mind of awakening bodhicitta is to develop the mind of awakening bodhicitta in one's continuum through compassion and love, through the mind of awakening itself. These are exercises in the cognizer, the object possessor, that they would develop in the mind.
Oh, yeah, that in a casino to that Shiba. And the new Sanju Sem Jula Yene, and the Chanju Sim the Manyaba Suna Chidula, and the Payu Liud, Kachimbushira, the Payu live with the Sanju Sem Jula, Jeba the Manyaba. Oh, yeah, just Sajo the Yanjo Konya on the Pavachea, or the gate Kama, and the Payu upon Chibu, Pamegi, Sanju Sem Jeba the Yamba Chigio, Payu to use Jeba the Manyaba Suna Chigio, or Chedata Sanju Sem Jeba the Sunwagi. Kasunda Kale Songa start the Odiko the new Shibana Shigi or
Thus, the fourth chapter, carefulness, conscientiousness, where the mind of awakening has arisen, it is then preserved to prevent it from ever declining. This is achieved through conscientiousness. The mind of awakening, bodhicitta, is produced so that it doesn't decline. It is furthered and intensified, all of which occurs through conscientiousness. Where there is negligence, the mind of awakening falters. Where there is conscientiousness, it does not decline, but is intensified. And so the topic of the fourth chapter, how one preserves the mind of awakening.
Oh, yes, that the day you don't have how you going to 아니 다 순간으로 되다 나랑도 장주 쌤 줄에 깨야고 깨버디 마냐바 제가 아니 양조 장주 쌤 고마고마만 줄에 깨투야 탑시게 되다라 아니 깨 마주 얘기 아니 레다 유모도 뭐저세 아니 디주파 빵바다 아니 대다 빵도 뉴 레다 유모디게 파빵 아니 쌤도 수 장주 쌤 코란 랑이 줄을 좀 Ruba never check all the do that, but it's soon your response.
Through conscientiousness, the mind of awakening bodhicitta would be preserved. Where the mind of awakening bodhicitta has arisen, that it not decline, that it achieve ever increasing heights of refinement, despite the interference of avidya, the mental afflictions, through identifying these mental afflictions and abandoning them, through abandoning karma and the klesha, the mental afflictions, then the mind of awakening may be produced, and then preserved.
Oh, yeah, that one that Chanjugu assembly, you like Jeba, Sunwa Cheba, Tizukanga, Tamado, in Sungu Nella, Chetubi Meba. Oh, the Meba, Tia, and the Sunwa Cheba, then do it in top Gugu Yoba. They do Tom Tobenane, and me, Chebas in top Gugu Yoba. Oh, the gate is charging shake your response.
The mind of awakening bodhicitta is developed and then preserved. To understand it in these terms, one emphasizes that in hell, the mind of awakening cannot be developed, is not likely to be developed. It isn't to be preserved there. In order to achieve the mind of awakening, one needs the fortune of a heavenly or human rebirth. Of these fortunate rebirths, it is especially the human body that is required. Without these conditions, it isn't achievable.
Oh, yeah, they must say, and it under Maranto, Margi. You are woman named Sabe, leg Hazuina, lady gets Sanapa, Tama, Tava Majena, and a lady gets Handu Jula Kewa, never checking you, and lady Tava Shea, and then lady that Tava Chito, and chick pagi. Like lady only Chimanga, son to Kewa, so Cheva in a young. 아니 레이티 마타바이나 아니 레이티 제부양 내손을 깨버이나 아니 자주생 자주 자야 고가 매봐 어디게 직시에 요래서
아니 냐발라네 데 레디 존나요
레 마타 레 간다사베 레이티 다와체 지단 직세 다 레이티 마타바이나 레이티 제부 내손도 깨기로 와 녀와서 봐 깨게 요바이나 깨차나 아니 양조 거의 레이드 사야 고 장주 쌤 고매하다 아니 거기 대대체야 고급대 라야 그 톱가와 이마 어떻게 지송거해서
And two, in the past, from beginningless time, the karmas that one has accumulated already, when one fails to purify them, cleanse oneself of them, then they hinder and prevent the mind of awakening, bodhicitta, from being developed, and so they must be purified. So the emphasis in the text. Furthermore, that should one fail to purify the negative karmas then and find oneself reborn in hell, then there it is next to impossible to develop the mind of awakening, to meditate upon the mind of awakening. There is all but no chance at all there, exceedingly difficult to meditate upon bodhicitta once one is born in hell. So the emphasis in the text.
Oh, yes, that you do that thing. Alin Yekawata, Yena, Tuichawa, but again, but then forget to give go up together and the ring around Zonata, the Gasonga Koale, Tarnet, then do 10 top or the dig that then Chebarchin, Ludin Chebarchin, same day Chebarchin, or that Susulapet. Fiji Matana, the Tangoya, Menaman, the Sadan Tang, the Viveki. Let me do some wood depending on the Tobiores or the decision.
Now, presently, what is had, that which is difficult to achieve, that which, when achieved, is so meaningful, the precious human birth, it is today's opportunity, it is the event of respite from hell, it is the fortune of the exceptional human body, the exceptional mind in the human body. All of these conditions are what are present now. It is the precious human body that we have at present. This too emphasized presently in the text.
No, to say that Alan Milly Chebarchin Toba, the that Karichi Tugure, Karichi Gugures, that Chiwati Resons. That Alan Miluti Tomni, I'm on the Talene to go up some would be Yango, Kogop the Mashoro, Mutuni, Kogop the Garan, top 2 year Yobagi, Sajenti, and Miluti, then Tugure, 좀 그래 손.
Now, having achieved the precious human body, it's having been gotten. What must we do then? Can we do what we must then in this present opportunity that is so exceptional? It is our obligation not to squander the opportunity, to extend this opportunity, which provides us with the very ability to again achieve the fortune of a human rebirth, with which we can do any number of things, with which we must do what we must do.
야, 사람도 정말 탐제로 내 송기 내다. 내 송기 동행에 집어다 잡아. 안가 정말 여러 수강 나눠 수강. 내 송기 동행에 짜기를 지기를 내 송기 동행 수강 되게 말해. 집어지게 하래. 옛날시 아니 내 손으로 줘야라 수강 되가 요 말해. 건드신 수강 된 건드 여바시는 라와치는 건이 수강 요 말했어. 강가로 돈이 강가로 라와 매비톤 내도 니문고 온게 라와 매비톤 깨보고요 말도 라와 예는 게 손을 깨고야 괜찮고 요 말해 손을
The place of hell is a fearsome place, fearsome to all of us, terrible to all of us. Every last one of us is terrified of it. We're all the same in that way. Not a single one of us wishes to be there. Not a single one of us wishes to be on our way there. None wish to go, and all who do go independently, against their will, defenselessly, under the sway of karma and the negative mental afflictions.
근데 이제 좀 맞다 말아도 나는 대조 물류 개발진 고급 상보 디케니 다 말아도 내주 랑게 예 랑라 요래 랑라 대화되어바디 랑게 되거래 제가 되고 여바 이들 좀 맞다 대화디 가네 용거래 대화 용어 가르치고래 대화 가네 용거래 좋아 되지 다 대화 되기 이유나 아니 대화 용사디 아니 개월 소남부터 용거래 제단다 세디게 그리고 유대디 때나다 소남도 그래 개월도 그래 어디 숨 거라서
Now, with the exceptional opportunity afforded by the human birth, which we take along with us as an opportunity that is exceptional, what is our responsibility then? The responsibility that stems from wishing for contentment. How are we responsible then for ensuring it for ourselves? How do we make it come to pass? This is the first question. We all wish for contentment. Contentment comes from the accumulation of autonomy and merit. That's from where it will come. And it is through this body that one is able to accumulate that autonomy.
예, 제가 근데 인디 달려나서 밀루디 때라 개월 좀마도 봐이나 아니 다랑 류디 배주 마당 말해 배주 류디는 배주 중요 말해 류디 철라당 말해 제가 류디 철라당 말해 류자 신부디 아니 고급 상부디 아니 배주 땅 투여 말해 이 매바인다 아니 다랑 미시마그랑 고고당 류바 말해 랑 류바래 랑랑 고바스여 말해서 디인도 딜레 다 쳐와 셴바 요 말했으면 수고하래서
Kamagare somebody's?
딜레 쳐와 수술을 내가 괜히 딜레 쳐와 요 말, 수술 딜레 고가 딜레 내가 쳐와 요 말해서
With the basis of a human birth, when one fails to accumulate their autonomy through it, that means it has gone unused. That means it has gone wasted. It is a wasted precious thing then. It is a wasted opportunity then. It has been left unused. And it isn't as though another has deceived one. One has deceived oneself. One has made a fool of oneself. There is no greater harm than that of fooling oneself, stupefying oneself.
야, 딱 대조 대화 근데 저원이 전에 다기 개공 맞잖아. 딜 루가 셴메데 딜 몽과 셴메도 사주주 가진 식들아 보면은 예 식이 전다도 깨시시는 어떤 데서 해서 식이 쉬우자도 주고 같은 어디 거 쉬우도 꼭꼭도 들어왔을 거 같아.
내성困难 용결네.
그래서 건 네가 어디 와.
네. 니와 메서 게 유링드.
딜 대원이 전에 다기 대공 맞잖아. 그래서 보는 연주들이 되는
오르르 나기 게와 맞는 노래. This then has been a recapitulation of the 23rd verse on page 56. Thus, having found this moment of reprieve, if I now fail to train myself in virtue, what greater folly could there ever be? How more could I betray myself?
야, 세상 나도 밀리티 키는다. 개와 마도나 아니다. 수수를 동침을 제거해. 수수 구고서 원래 저는 다 들리. 합쳐와 요 말을 쓴다. 대신이 잡사와지. 다 디네 디젤다. rangi milu chebar chende kine milu chebar je lang chane ani se dilayang ani dunghe nyongo ba share thandala adi oma chi yete dagi teto ne mongba chijang kiluna chiwar gyube tujitse nyanghe chenpo dangwa gyurus o ya daga da se dilayang ani ta 동해 친구 영화 교부를 했는데 송과해서
아니, 소속이 아니 용축으로 와.
영주 영그를 해서
해야 돼. 아니 그래서 아니 고깝디 맞습나?
그렇게 맞습나?
맞아.
아니 제딜라야 동해 친구 영화 교부를 했어.
With the inheritance of the precious human body, which has been taken up now by us presently, to not make use of it then is foolhardiness, the greatest form it could ever take. Now, in this precious human rebirth that we have inherited, that we have gotten, if we fail to make use of it, then one must suffer in this life too. Describing this, the 24th verse, if having understood all this, I'm stupidly despondent still, then at the moment of my death, my sorrows will be black indeed.
야, 다 지나면 알아도 미지나가 나도 미기 밀룰레 미기 인자 밀루기 나라 동에 가르스는 밀룰레 밀룰레니라 동에 그 제가 나지게 동에 시 제가 나지게 동에 시다는 알아 지도 나온다 동에 시다는 치외 동에 되다 동에 치쇼 지기레스 제자다 치외 아니 치외 둘레도 아니 다섬라 만다 지금아 근데 동행 친구 양화 체력은 대시 경우가 그래서
Now in our lives, in our corporeal bodies that we have acquired now, they are susceptible to the four characteristic pains of birth, aging, sickness, and death. And of these, death is the most painful. At the time of death, that we will be terror stricken, that we will be terrified. The verses to follow.
야, that's the Quran 막 가두지 되시겠나? 얘들 다기 대도네 사탄한 말한줄라. 얘들사 주주 고급 상보 예배 주주 데라스. 아니 다기스 수수르다. 밀룰렌딩 수이나 수수기스. 나 맞을로 쳐라도 남지기 싫어요. 쳐라도 남지 또 싫어대 차상 여봐. 최제게 때 루틴 선대 차상 때 하나 bü다 여봐게 셈 녀봐 많이 봐 룰은 나자매봐 강가 차상 상대이 고급 이 여봐지 이 강라야 하나 최제게 고급 차상 여봐지 최퇴배 최신이 이게 여봐 최고나 때뭐 지금도 내가 이봐 오 되게 고급 상보 딜라스 네 되게 고급 상보 이봐다 근데 라나 가다를 최고 야마티 최근 남샤 담제 시 두야 유바 유베 고급 딜라 아니 랑게 마리바 몽베 왕게스 아니 레로체나 아니 랑게 다 치가라나 랑가다 베 그게 뭐 당화 요구레스 그 당원이 그런 소문
Now, the direct explanation of the first two lines would be, if having understood all this, that is, this opportune moment for any person with their human body, with the human body's innate discriminating intelligence, a basis with a mind that is excellent, a body that is healthy, all of these conditions present, none wanting. Furthermore, the Bodhisattva as topic of study, available as topic of study, instructors present to provide instruction, the Dharma itself extant still in the world, an opportunity as fortunate as this, with all of the explanations in the Bodhisattva, and an ability to comprehend them all. If nevertheless, through ignorance, we become lazy, then at the time of death, we will be terror-stricken. So the meaning of these first two lines.
Oh, yeah, that under the that 고급 딜라 게디 란도 겨다 디바게 란도 마노르바체 제시아바 제고래 이 마체바 이나 아니 다랑이 밀루 한다 밀루디 톱에 배주 마당 오고나 찍으래 이제 이르자마다 나도 몽베 샤와도 줄스도 몽베 길로보다 샤와도 줄세야지 몽바디 레로당 아니 남이니기 왕도 줄네 아니 가족이다 아니 세대라다 간다 라비 룰라야 치 계획 저와 줍마투야 돼 걔 가리기 치고스나 레로당 남이니기 아니 왕도 쇼네 아니 말아도다 취체 보고거나 돌아다니 요래서
And then in short, when one must have clarity regarding what is virtuous and what is non-virtuous, and must be able to distinguish the two, when instead one allows oneself to be mired in a confusion, that is, to not use the opportunity of the human body, it is to fall under the sway of ignorance in the forms of laziness and distractedness. By the force of that laziness and distractedness, all is laid to waste. One isn't able to engage in virtue. This is by the force of laziness and distractedness. Everything is laid to waste. The opportunity is utterly squandered.
Oh, yes, that's Pame, but a Lelonigi, Pame, but Pame, Lelo. Lelo digi wangi anis kada ledi chiara dumba meba, troa meba. Kada ta troa meba chiara, called troa medu zama ani called chiagi kada lelo lelo ni kilu pasno. Tanga to penang ranzo lata ede yorwa ranzo tujun karina ta chu sim yewe cho dila chiara kumba yomar ranzo kumba yomar. Kumba meba inza ani ko kumba meya di zoji kasan 코치엘 트로메가 있는 공부들이 말. 그냥 아주 최고스나 원래 건다 때 안다 주도 가도 가다 주도 고아서 검지하고서나 아주 어다 주도 치자자다 아니 내서 아니 나한테 직체에서 다 이해를 아주 샘지고 원게 공부면서 거기에 샘내 팀도구민도 아주 주도 되지를 말아도 직파게 양직 칠로 더하지를 링가 따야다 오다 되네 때문에 따야다 오다 좀 제대로 지메다 아주 주주들 따다로 주주 치자자 오다 그가 니에서 라고 말와 지금 꼭 샘비 쪼 유명하게 도기 제버기 아니 아주 그다 계획 잡아 쳐야 되라 레로 숙천부 매기 잡아 쳐야 되라 가장 쪼아 첨부 요래서 대제 왕기 아니 아주 그다 간다 겨와 두마투 차기 요래서
Ignorance and distractedness are manifestations of the absence of enthusiasm, a lack of any aspirations. And where there's no enthusiasm and there's no aspiration, then there's inevitable postponing of what is urgent in the embrace of virtue. The mind isn't yet at all accustomed to virtues, and so it has no enthusiasm or aspiration toward it. And then, so it happens, then in the evening, we would think it is time for me to meditate, but then moments later, but it is too late and it's time to go to bed, in fact, and then we don't meditate. But if the plan were to go sightseeing or go out on a tour, go out and about and entertain ourselves, it wouldn't occur to us that it had grown too late. And this is the intensity of the laziness that prevents any embrace of virtuous activity. There is excitement and excessive familiarity with non-virtue. And so we haven't yet embraced well virtue at all.
진짜 이들도 말아도 계획이 차와돼 있다. 좀 매바이나 마주바이나 아니 다 제가 넘어다 내 지금에 지투 마송 당 앞에 빼서도 다 계획이 빼죠. 하다르게 손으로 오케이 다 제마도 가다가 나게 계획이 차와도 주마도 계획이 아니 다 오가 빼게로 지기를 다 같이 지금 마송서 셈나가 아니 내 친구 나라 지기를 셈나를 아니 시가 셈을 치워본도 그려는데 아니 랑게 뭐마 제시하고 내가 이거 제시하기도 셈나테 여와 제마도도 셈나테 아니 랑게 내게 나라다 남도 그 마고 샤르는데 아니 동해 남라게 동해게 된대게 오는 아니 세디라야 동해 배 첨부 용어도 그래서
having never done that which is virtuous, then at death, one laments, I wasn't able to ever do anything virtuous at all. Surely I will be born in hell by the force of all the virtues that I never did engage in. Instead, then my plight is to be born in hell. The prospect of never having done anything virtuous at the time of death, when death is the moment, the actual moment is occurring, at that moment, all the non-virtues one has engaged in, one will recall. That one didn't engage in any virtue at all, one also recalls. Then one will be beset by great fears, great worries. It will be an excruciating moment in one's life, the most excruciating sort of moment.
Oh, yeah, this is 다 이제 인도 좀 봤다. 아주 치와 근데 공도 주는데 치와 to do the left 나. 다 드레스는 지금 다 앞에나 들려요. 전에 또 참반이 샤나다. 또 인다. 근데 되게 또 참반이 샤요와. 또 참반이 샤나라. 치외 뒤니 녀주나스. 치외 뒤를 녀발레버 주나. 아니 동해기니 셈니 좀스. 동해기니 셈니 좀 셈니 좀 사와
셈니 코랑
셈 코랑 좀
좀약이 그니다니
셈니 좀 같이 그래
라라
셈나 강에 뭐도 셈니 봐 내가 좀 같이 그래서 다 근데 아니 가르치 그랬으나 강야 개와 마도 베스 강야 주제 가리나야 개와 마도 봐 신수 관계자 아니 치외 동해로 껴봐 지토부 말해세 가서 가야 개와 마도 빼 캡신 남니 녀마통 캡신 남니 녀마통 어또 전반에 전화 식들이 지가 해서 식들 따라줘서 치외 되지 내좀나 동해진이 셈니 좀 세. 가야 개와 마도 빼 개와를 되고니 개와 마도 빼 캡신 개니 녀마통 전대 되는데 손으로
The Buddha himself, in the Sutra of Close Mindfulness, does the verse go just like this? This is of the moment of death when it's manifesting itself. At the time when the moment of death has fallen upon one, the Buddha said in the Sutra of Close Mindfulness, the moment of death draws near, terrific and destroying the mind itself. Having never engaged in any virtue at all, one looks to find another protector, and none is to be found.
예, 세상다 치외 강로 치외 중기 열중나서 예바 중화스리 치외 셈들랑로 모두 줄두스 치외 모네 랑로 렙두스 아니 다 동해 배 삼삼노 남도다 남다다 동해 왕기 아니 수주 셈다 나고자 마투어도 배 강에 치고 셈배 좀 제가 삼도 당마투어 차기를 했어 이제 거들었다 격투니 요 말을 수익 격투야다 저에 답시도 개요 말을 했으나 가야서도 근데 기회 별 말했으나 얘도 요래 예와도 격투를 해서 예와도 얘나 아니 격투를 예와도 매나 격투 말해서 가야 예와 마도 빼스 예와 마도 빼 아니 셈시 겹신 아니 단계다 뒤지다 진짜 지로 당하고 하다 루트 뉴지스야 수강에 다 뒤쪽 투여를 답시게요 말했을 정도에서
When death draws near, at the very moment of the manifestation of death in the mind, the real event of death itself, at that moment, the excruciating terrors, the superstitious worries that beset the mind cannot control. At that moment, is there any protection to be found at all? There must be some, isn't there? Is there no protection to be found at all from this, the moment of death? Oh, but yes, there is. But it is virtue itself. If one has engaged in no virtues, there is none there, no protection at all there. Only virtue can intercede. Apart from this, the Buddhas, the Nagas, the Deva, they cannot intercede.
이게 있으면다 제가 너무 아니 지금 하나 쌤들 남자 매봐 아니 교바 매봐 대대 제바데 다 제투야 탑이 가르치 그래서나 예외 취주는 지그래서 예외 취 나도 시간을 몰라 나도 쌤들 남자 매봐 아니 지금 밖에 교바 제목과 다디 제 뒤뒤전보다 시간 넘어다 네 교바 제목이야 또 그랬으나 아니 계획치였다 아니 계획치였다 단다 계획치였어야지 가르스는 창주 쌤하고 봐 창주 쌤이 여바 이나 계획치였어야 겨와도 술었으나 창주 쌤이 여바 이나 아니 거의 다 껴도 그래서
Now at the moment of death, how could it be a moment free of fear, free of cause for regret, a moment where there's no need at all for any remorse? How could this instead characterize the moment of death? It could by virtuous dharmas. By virtuous dharmas, we mean bodhicitta, the mind of awakening. Where there is bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, if there is bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, this is the protection.
말하면서 그 jamru chandu sanje da che da gindus jamru tve ande japsum segro an yongazo peta to yongazo chejidu an kudan sungda che ganga ko che chigirede inayang tadata su che tugilu da bata rangi one jobedi sanje sungbe ani da lam tabda shera 아니 장주고 쌤 때들을 다 치워군조 원행 아주 점이 어디 차대요 그래서 일단 인도자마다 장주고 쌤이 귤러 여바 이나 아니 대보침을 람 간장 귤러 여바가 집어래서 안데 탑다 셔라다 간가 상거래 상황이다 그거다. 이두다 봤으면 남자 마요와 지과 마요와 때 여바 치먹고 차방비 아니 자주 쌤이 얘나 너도 그래. 신 수강서 두고 말해서
The refuge, the three rare and sublime gems that are called the refuge of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. These are the three that are the refuge. In the practice of the Dharma, these are followed. But at the moment of death, it is the Dharma and the path of the Dharma of method and wisdom contained in Bodhicitta itself. It is the Dharma spoken by the Buddha that is the actual refuge, where Bodhicitta is in the mind. Every step of the Mahayana path is in the mind, complete in every stage, with wisdom and the method aspect, all replete therein. And then there would be, at the moment of death, no cause for fear, no reason for fear, no cause for regret. All of this by the force of the presence of Bodhicitta. But Bodhicitta absent, there is no other protector to be found.
야, 따뜻해지가 동해들이냐. 따뜻해지를 동해들이 영화 맛에 아니 치마야 내 손도 깨네. 내 손도 동해 영화 끼고. 이그레스 어디 숨어야 된다라? 따뜻히 오마 된다. 녀면서가 유린 두스 다기 룰라 세줄나 교바 미세 메버베 셈루 주와 되미사 어디 제다가 치마에 내 손이 자주 이 간다 세til라 여와 두마투가 이나 아니 치마에 손을 깨게냐 손도 깨와 이나 아니 동해 딱 세메가 연구 비유베 아니 다 시기 때문에 손을
One must suffer in this life, and then later, in the realms of ill fortune, in unfortunate realms, one must suffer as well. To describe this in the 25th verse on page 56, and when my body burns so long, in fires of hell so unendurable, my mind, there is no doubt, will also be tormented, burned in fires of unendurable regret. Then in this life, one must suffer, but when one hasn't engaged in any virtue at all and is born in hell, then there the suffering and pain is endless, it is boundless. So the 25th verse.
Oh, yeah, that under Setila Chanjugul sing with Tomba Langbata, Tomba Lambata, and Tomba Leni, Tomba Yamba so Cheba Inas, and the Kiawa Digi, and the culture is not. 아니 녀외기 나나 기그레 녀외나 깨바이나 아니 녀외기 매기 동해기 라시기 쇠가와 하장 동해 규림보 동해 차고 배 동해 장마와 대제기 배 아니 같이 그랬다 랑게 룰라 색바다 제바다 두바로 소바 동와로 소바다니 동해 배 나르나도 규그레에서
로 아니 장죽기 심기 돈바데 아니 야르랑네 아니 냠
그러니까 아주 자주 선배 동바 냠바다
냠바다
아니 겨땅도 배 겨치고 배자로 와 자주 선배 동바 냠바다 못 찍어 배자라 냠발라 때네 아니 자주 선배 동바 손마도 그랬대 아니 할지었네 치망에 손 녀와로 소바 깨바 이나스 아니 녀와로 소바 깨바 이나 아니 녀외게 나라 아니 매게 동해지 수역가가 수역을 탑내가 동해 하정을 용부 하고 망고 되는 연구가 대학이라는 게 미디어가 색과 메라타마 색과 제바 샤바 동원을 소리 동해 배 남자만 고 연구가 되어 해서
in this life we're one to formally adopt the vows of the Bodhisattva and then allow them to be violated, then born in hell. There, the pains are endless, intense, and various. One takes an instance of a virtue that one engaged in their life and then violated, left unguarded. For instance, adopting the vows of the Bodhisattva. and one is born into the hell realm. And therefore, the pain continues. It is unbearable for the body. The body is beaten, it is broken, it is cut, it is seared with flames. So the meaning of the verse.
Oh, yeah. 아니 랑게 셈을 셈 동그래 셈을 백강에 마고 체를 아니 교바찌기로 왔어요. 아니 배 하장도 수요마도 같은 게 수요가 이제 동해찌기로 동해 친구 영화 교부 요르바데 아니 배다 해서미 말해서
No, there are guards in the prisons. No differently, there are guards in the hell realms. And there, when one takes one's birth, then they are there to inflict an enumeration of one's non-virtues and failures, that one took the formal vow of Bodhisattva, but then did not observe the precepts, and in addition engaged in countless other non-virtues. And with their enumeration, it is the beating and the tormenting of the mind. The mind is in pain. The mind is filled with regrets then, and this is excruciating pain, and it must be endured, yet it is unendurable. And about this, there is no doubt.
Oh, 맞아. 단다 나도 미 때나 배 동해녀야 인조 레 아니 예외 때는 동해도 하장 다뷰르 동해 쳐 배는 매게 트여다고 집으로 셔 있네. 말한도 단대기 매게 트여되다 되게 타마여랑 집으로 지도 되게 타마가 매게 트여 있는 게 지중 제발이 열었어. 벨레장 예외게 매도 다뷰르 차와 배 근데 동해가 제가 근데 날 동해게 되다 단단한 좀 매게 동해 취지 차고 동해 취지 수요 두고면은 아니 예외게 매게 길에 대고 동해들의 영토에서 수요 두가 버려요 말아 제가 그래도 동해 용이 그래서 뭐 아니 다 당도 동해 하장이 돼 설라면 이제 동해 용부고 이거 되게 즉시 좀 그래서
The basis of the human body then can become cause for the torments that one experiences by the force of the karmas that one accumulates through it. And then in the hell realms, the heat that is known there is nothing like the heat that is known to us here. It would be like the difference between the heat of a flame here, which is painful, and the inferno at the end of the world and the destruction of the universe. The heat then exponentially greater. So it is exponentially greater, the pain in the inferno of hell that one experiences. It is unendurable. It is unbearable. To convey this, the verse.
Oh yeah, 당도 주주 그거 대샤다 두면은 뭐신 아니 승체요 대단다 비파샤 당도 검자야겠어. Now
we will conclude the way of the Bodhisattva here. If we go on with the torments, then we might be exhausted. And so we will pick up again with the minds and mental factors, primary consciousness and mental factors, meditations.
Oh, yeah, that's the Kundunga nane ngaba rekbe simju. Oh, the rekbe simju de golani that is my.
And the minds and mental factors, then in those 5 omnipresent mental factors, here we turn to contact among these 5. omnipresent mental factors.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Did you do not that there's a big more to do? You know, once you some do this, so what there was so come you and you come. You did you go for the you were done. What can you just remember? You told you jobber chapter, some you jela repast. Yes, sir.
Yes.
You did what?
No, no,
What around?
you don't want to see this one.
Oh, you don't want to so do it. And it's what they want to do to you carry when Ted Jesus to Barayula. And then Jibber Chip St. Jones. What is it? Going on in this.
Then fifth, the definition of contact is a mental factor that once the object, the sense faculty, and the sense consciousness have come together by its own power, selects an object in accord with whatever feeling of pleasure and so on is to be experienced. So this is the nature of contact.
Oh, if you want to get on the region, you also Jeba said, that will mix it to my vacation, you also Jeba said, you know what you soon do not, and you chedaba, te, and to my you to Jeba. Jela, and you to Jebas. You to Jeba said it to that audience.
This is followed then by clarification of selects an object, that function of contact. The phrase selects an object means to select a particular object as its own unique object, once the object, sense faculty, and sense consciousness have come together.
Oh, yeah. That in it, the magic power. You now want you some do, said you now want to do, I'm gonna miss some do, to do the Yamdo Zoms and all some do's and that. And Jalasum in the Yamdo lesson or consume that Jalasum, the Yamdo Zoms. That under day soon to do, said the Yamdo Jubala. She gave you a two chick, the Yamdo to Jubal Deshe Mares. Town of do said Karizina. Daje ombo tang tell them that Namshi Nirwa, Nacho Queen Judet, Judet to Mayam, you did little the card, Kigmar, table little to the card or the natural essence. Quiniamdo to Mumare.
Once the object, the sense faculty, and the sense consciousness have come together. To come together, we know in the sense of three people gathering, we would say of them, they've come together. Or three objects brought together, three objects have come together, been brought together. And one thinks in these instances of their being brought together and simultaneously present together. However, to clarify, this is not implied here that the three are present simultaneously. It does not indicate that they have come together at exactly the same time. For the sense faculty, which is the dominant condition, and the sense consciousness, which it is based upon, are sequential and not continuous, meaning that the sense faculty, which is dominant, is cause for the sense consciousness that follows it. It is cause then, when it is present, the result isn't yet present, but then with the arising of the sense consciousness, it as result having arisen means that the cause then is no longer present as they are sequential.
Oh, yeah, some do say that some of the thing is not. You don't onboard the Shebosum sound to what is to talk about some sound to you.
So what might be meant then by come together? Instead, or specifically, that the object and the sense faculty and the consciousness are all complete then.
Oh, yeah, that 소외 땡체베 레제노 스타디 콩비당도 이 공부 군도 콩비도 다.
The scriptural support here is drawn from the compendium of knowledge, where it says, what is contact? It is what determines transformation of the sense faculty once the three have come together. It functions as the basis of feeling. This is the scriptural source for the nature of contact.
Oh, yeah, that color now, Nancy, Yodo can be not that I can almost the solution, but what's your then you go in, make it to the rebel, ye to the rebel bottle. Middle two, Namshi to your anashi, onward two, then to your open suicide, to you do soon sober to your sedan. Ye to make it to the rebel, ye to the rebel, the troops, middle two shower essence.
Then how many divisions, or how many types of contact would there be then? Just as the mental factors above have all had 6 types, that is from the visual sense faculty all the way through the 6th sense faculty, the mental sense faculty, that is from vision all the way to mentation. The 6 faculties have their 6 types of contact, where the basis, the particular sense faculty, and its particular primary consciousness, the 3 are present, then the contact is present, there being 6 kinds of contact then.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that is such a subject that the Canada. That the Kundra, that thing out the Kundro Ming Tiger, Kundro Ming. Karchin Kundros Ming Tavarasana. Sem Kawa Yune, Kobe, Yamdolo, Yongu, Sem Kawa Yula, Yamdo Yogu Veda, Kundros, Sem Kawa Dron and Tikot, the Kundunga, Lebu Veda, Kundros Lavares.
Then why are the sense faculty, rather, why are these 5 in particular omnipresent, called omnipresent mental factors? They always and continuously attend or are present with any given primary consciousness.
Oh, that's same Kandijina, same Kandijina, called Kundunga with the Kanushi Matana, same digging. And Yula, but then Yula Zoba longs to Mares, show me to Veda, and Simjung Nobody in Jimmy. Same level condition at the Simjung Nobody go yours. The men at Sem Lagacha Chimatu those Chago.
Any conscious state where any one of these 5 might be absent, would not be able to process its object. The 5 omnipresent mental factors are indispensable, are absolutely necessary to any given conscious state processing an object.
Oh, yeah, then it's all men. I thought so men, you never do this one.
For instance, absent feeling, the mental factor of feeling, which is the first of the 5 omnipresent mental factors, then there would be no experiencing of the object, right?
Oh, yeah, it's all never to go your restaurant.
So therefore, feeling, the mental factor, is necessary.
Oh, yeah, that never do she mena, you tumu maimba, Samar Zimbati. Yeah, Samar Zimba, you like Cheber Jimmy to a child restaurant.
The second omnipresent mental factor, discrimination, where it would be absent, there would be no apprehension of characteristic properties of a given object. There would be no basis for drawing for a distinguishing between properties of objects.
Oh, yeah, that's from Semba. That's Semba the mena, you look choba never child, you look, although you been Hadeda, and you get Machi down to do that, same goes Mama the Chimata, 다대이나 파주도 투주도 가고도 나고도 쌤 파초로 그 초에 내가 잘 그래서 쌤 카피오라도 어디 내가 잘 그래. 다대도 빼나. 그래서
And the third omnipresent mental factor of intention, where it might be absent, then the identification of separateness in properties, opposite in properties, in preceding and that which precedes and that which follows, that which is distinct from that other, white from black, the preceding moment from the subsequent moment, such would not be processed by the primary consciousness.
yeah, that's in a shiva ila cheba de mena, and me what chedabala ye devil never jugures. Ila cheba de mena, me what chedaba. And I use somebody, me what chukanga, chiba, Kanga to Cherwa. That me what best relevant ye devil cheva. Almost about there was a hawk, you did it, you majeba. Majeba did it. The Koyada, the Koy Marada, the Della Your Maras, by each Yag, Puri Jajora, or the illegible men or the Chitu Maras.
Then in mental engagement, the mental factor of mental engagement, were it absent, particulars of an object or particulars in an array would not be selected out of the array. The mind identifies and concentrates upon one in an array of objects without confusing the array in any member of the array. That mental engagement selects from the array, says that this is it and that is not, this is it and that is not. This by the mental factor of mental engagement.
Oh, yeah, don't know about the regwa man, you the teba. You the teba, you the tin, forget juba the new, you the tin new mare. You the tin menu is that, reporting about the Google resonance.
And in the fifth mental factor of the fifth omnipresent mental factor, contact, the encounter with the object without contact would be impossible. There would be no potential for contact with the object.
Oh, same you the teba the reports. So that the day you do, and that same you love Juba Chebala, Kundru Nabudi, never the Sangu Yovaza, or Kundru's name the Tagio.
The mental factor of contact connects the mind to its object, engages the mind with its object, and so too, without any of these five omnipresent mental factors, the mind, a conscious state cannot engage with or process its object.
Oh, yes, that Kundungadi, same there, you let Chawacha, same Junga, the Chera, Kachimbu Chade.
Therefore, these five omnipresent mental factors in the conscious states of the mind are necessary.
Oh, yes, that's the same Junga, there's here, Gochana, and it's same with that. Chawachi, the college, or the college, or the hard, how to the same with Chawachi, and Chedang, the Tone, and Mimbola, Jugia, 아니 미국 때야 누구 강가로 세우 차를 해서
With an understanding of the five omnipresent mental factors, then observing mental activity, one will be able to identify what functions are occurring in the mental state that allows for processing of an object, clarity in processing of an object.
오예 안다 심지 그런가 뭐디 이승에 도나 아니 심주도 예치도야 갈리스가 영어 콘도 뭐 심주도 스피니도 이때 하고나 야고요 선택이 도다.
Now, I think that if you understand the nature of each of the five omnipresent mental factors and actually comprehend them, then there'll be no actual difficulty in differentiating one from the other. This would come from an understanding of their definition.
어제 배는 포알 차잖아. 샘둥 파마스 샘 대화다 동에다 파마숨 찌르바랑도 비냠스 뇨에 아니 땡진 나바체지 샘중 어디였나요? 어디요? 뭐 소화돼 소용 어찌다. 때문에.
For instance, feeling. First, the definition of feeling is a mental factor that, by its own power, experiences any type of pleasure, pain, or neutral feeling.
샘중다 뒤시디 랑 랑법지 참을 zembe 샘중스.
The definition of discernment or discrimination is a mental factor that, by its own power, apprehends the distinguishing mark of its object.
어디서다 얘네 숨바디 샘바와 샘바디 랑다 총대기 샘 율라 요신 구월 제베 샘중스.
Then the definition of intention is a mental factor that moves and incites the mind with which it is concomitant toward the object.
어디서 시바디 일라 제바르도 랑다 총대기 샘 미과 치라발라 랑법지 되버 제베 샘중스.
The definition of attention is a mental factor that by its own power directs the mind with which it is concomitant to a particular object. The definition of contact is a mental factor that, once the object, the sense faculty, and the sense consciousness have come together by its own power, selects an object in accord with whatever feeling of pleasure and so on is to be experienced. Understanding the definitions of each of the mental factors, one will understand the mental factors and have no trouble distinguishing between them. Whether one is meditating or is studying cognitive science, in either case, some familiarity here will be beneficial. Then we'll conclude again for here, and as usual, if there are any concerns or doubts, then we can use our Q&A to address them. If there are no questions, then we'll
So if there What is the danger of just sort of giving up and saying, there's no way I have enough merit to ever escape the hell realm, so I'm just resigned to the fact that that's going to happen to me because I just don't have enough merit to not end up there.
到这里的samlo kirtan dilla ani ninka gare yore tena nga de sona sheja sa ne tsang ten ani nyawala fung yongre samne nga tabla mendu tabshi mendu nga ani sona ani dange mendu tsang ani mar ani nyawala fung tak chore sam ba dela ninka gare yore
당부처럼 칙디 모든 거나 길로 봐서 좋아하더니
You 봐요.
이 좋아하대 이 단다디 와대 좋아하대 다징은 칙 당부 껴야 되나 몽베 치견 길로 나스 링 칙디라
되는
누구
대충 거는 용어 되는 말에 된다
어디
해야 돼.
대또네 몽베 기견 몽베 치견 길로 나스 어디 칙디 저랑 다 대시 얘기도 없어
Now you repeat all over again the 24th verse. If having understood all this, I'm stupidly despondent still, then at the moment of my death, my sorrows will be black indeed.
예세단 아주 가르스나탄 얘기 체매 치 두고 말에 얘기 연구 말에 섬 전문에 셈나라 수수도 또 매봐 레로 그 온도 셔츠하여 레스
If one thinks I cannot and I have not and it won't happen in my case, then already one has lost to laziness.
세상에 내치 두고 매게 그 섬도 땅요 말다 달린 말은 집에 지역에 뒤지 차단 상유 땅에 지기 있으면 하고 또 숙심 못 깨워서
One mustn't think I cannot. No, do not think that. Instead, realize the conditions are present here for me, and therefore have enthusiasm for their being present for you.
아니 좋아지 여봐지나 아니 좋아 되게 온기 아니 거의 공부하고 뭐 이봐 손바지 대변 하다 장주 샘 공부도 돈이 공부도 좋아지 얘나 공부를 갈래요 뭐 좋아지 내나 아니 공부를 레로 온 쇼도 그래서
With enthusiasm, pushed by enthusiasm, then one takes the first step in their growing familiarity, their second state, growing more familiar with them, the third step, so that they become more familiar with the mind of awakening and bodhicitta and shunyata. And then, am I meditating on the mind of awakening? Am I meditating on shunyata? Where there's no enthusiasm for such meditations, one does not, but where there is enthusiasm, one surely will.
가다 수수가 딱 굉장히 상해 그러나 수수를 동반이가 땀 퇴하기 동반이 땀 퇴하기 최배 시럽이 지랑 참여 딱 퇴내랑 삼중 시럽 제는 동반이 그래서 수수가 로이나 니만 범자는 거와 동반이 퇴를 삼도 땅도 아니 가지고 레드도 배치는 축치고 깨워 동다 먹어서게 레드를 눈을 닭이 열었어 세상 아니 장주고 셈레게 삼도 땅 퇴용도 아니 나는 소 동반이 퇴용이 된다되게 이모들이 바꾸비하게 되다가 소가 장주 셈들이 좋아 지기 열었어 세상 딱 저랑 한단 매 산데 삼바디 수수가 딱 이즈 삼도 땅이나 그마시도 니마르르레 마주고 아니 장주생 꼴 세기요 삼기요 아니 공기요 아니 동반이 되는 꼴 퇴고요 삼고 공기요 대족이 퇴고 뉴바드족은 아니 나왔다 여와 메스네 여바디 유튜브 쳐고요 그래서
The present conditions are that one is exposed to exposed to the language expressing shunyata, emptiness. One has heard expressions of shunyata. One has the discriminating intelligence to discern those expressions conveying shunyata, emptiness. A meaning is discovered by a person in their exposure to those expressions of shunyata, and day by day, one can increase their familiarity with the meaning intended. Doing this deliberately again and again is the very process that is purifying the karmas that have accumulated over eons. And so too, each re-embrace of the mind of awakening to comprehend its meaning is to finish up that outstanding accumulation by which one then develops the mind of awakening. To think that I can't, to have this characterize one's thoughts, even at the time when one is attending to a instruction in the mind of awakening itself, and then later contemplating the mind of awakening, and then even meditating upon the mind of awakening. And in the same way, when one is studying shunyata and contemplating it and meditating upon it, it isn't that bodhicitta and shunyata, then their every potential is lost, but one can actually achieve these in this way. That third omnipresent mental factor of intention here, that is the mind inclining itself there toward, in your case, as you described, the virtues that one didn't engage in, that one has engaged in all these non-virtues. That one inclined this way might better redirect oneself to a return to that awareness that one is being exposed to shunyata and to bodhicitta, the mind of awakening. And one has developed bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, and shunyata. This is the direction to incline your mind. Then employ intention to direct yourself toward the virtues that you are engaged in. Confirm with yourself that you are repeatedly exposed to those expressions of shunyata. You've heard them, you contemplate them, and you do meditate upon them. Reflect, I have heard these expressions of shunyata and contemplated them, and I meditate upon them. I have. And by doing so, I have accumulated great merit, and I have cause for celebration. Direct yourself through your intention in this way.
외초로 제대로 아우딩도 사람 아니 샤워시가 이거 지투버를 계속 그래서
then use contact, then the mental factor of contact, to engage the object that is your virtues. Recognize the virtues for which you are responsible and engage in them through rejoicing in them, celebrating in them, and then engage again with the non-virtues by confessing to them. This is the engagement with the objects. That is the function of contact. Then you may intensify and increase the virtues, and you may reduce and attenuate those non-virtues. That is the way to go, not to think, oh, just merely think, oh, I didn't do this and I did do this and leave it at that. If you do, you can't hire yourself out to any end at all. And so recognize the virtues for which you are responsible and celebrate them, and recognize too, today I have been responsible for non-virtues, and then confess to them and engage the objects in this constructive way. This is important to do.
딱 얘기 수수고 양용톤의 소화도 저랑 상담하는 그냥 되게 이거 제일 이게 겨우 재미도 삼바저와 이 삼바디 다 그래서 야고 이제도 간다베 상고레스 다 수수고 게 남이 쇼 겨우체나 겨우체 상로마다 직세 양수수 겨우체면은 제일 삼나 아니 스타트즈 아니 최대 쇼스 그 간다 겨우 양조 두배 그거 되게 말했어 간다 저랑 왜 미즈나 직 겨우 두민도 땅에 이거 제샤 삼바디 그거 쉬우야 보지래서
소스게 툭냠게 톤에
말하는 저랑 저랑 간다 삼바 땅다 되는 말하는 수주를 내면도 삼으시나 이 삼을 그거 야보지를
the feeling that arises in me naturally hearing what you've said is that your particular mindset to reflect I am responsible for these non-virtues, that there are these virtues that I didn't engage in, that the awareness of this is a positive moment. It's different than to be distracted entirely, where it doesn't occur to you that you are responsible in this way for non-virtues, and that there are virtues that you haven't engaged in, and it's not a moment of indifference to them either. Instead, it's an awareness of non-virtues and virtues, and a positive moment. That's my feeling.
아니 수수 내가 교구 여버들 한국 개네 한국 멋신게 유나 교와 땅 두고 야게 땅 두고 나왔어 이 수수 멋신게면은 야게 땅 두고 말아와서 어디나지 나왔어
It's just that when one recognizes that one has made a mistake or found oneself in a poor situation, the mere recognition of that is enough to become the cause for improving the situation and altering the course of events again. But where one is unaware, then that's not possible. So in that sense, it's positive.
도시다 간다 지난게 수수비 간다 스템나가 제대야디 이거 말해서 꼭 간다 미개와 여바 채나 샤바 챙겨래 미개와 여바 맞에는 샤바 챙겨 말 제단 주 용으로 말 왔어 근데 제마디 시라기 해치고 냠내나 해치고 해서
So thank you, because the thought I'm responsible for non-virtues, that thought occurring to the mind is constructive and positive, because that recognition is then basis for a confession. Where there's no recognition of responsibility for non-virtues, and there's no confession. So your power recall of your responsibility is constructive. Are there others?
아니 신발면은 안 돼. 넘어가서
가로 정하다.
그러면 지금 예전에 가서 범지경은 가르볼 때에 했지만
Now, if we were to meditate, then if there are no questions, what might we meditate on?
기억되는 공 가르잖아요.
If we meditate, what would you meditate on?
생중 가서 생중 시에서 생중 먹고 있잖아. 생중 가서 쌤 그것도 쓰다는 것도 또 수수부 따다가 저었다와 나예지는 수수비 쌤이 개와 제유나 아니 개와 제와 되는 빅데 아니 될스 다 생중아 내가 최고로 생중아되게 아무 초화되게 개와 제와 그게 개와 저 야고 개와 제투 야고를 상 초화 대화시키러 와 초화 대화시키 이제 당에 다들인 그 주인의 담시에 들으신 그 동원이 된토에서 그 가오 중중선을 초화 대화시키 유지로 와 다들은 초화 계산을 도와질라 딱 무시되게 아니 개와디 앞에 들어왔다 담들이가 이거 가라 초화지 아니 초화가나
So what about
이거 좀 두시 두시 두시기다 아니 다 개와 제바들 미네 아니 라기다 유 개와 이 간데스 아니 개와들 또 칠로 간데로 칠로 개와 야고 칠도 미데 삼 제바치도 잡아 두시 삼바시 나와 아니 그런 개와들 야고랑 중매도 야고 중샤 하면 곧 예친 이게 삼바 제로 이 두시제 다들 두시제는 이 숨바 셈바로 셈바되게 개와 제바들 빼 아니 다 수계도 개와 지조되게 하는 마음 발라 이 셈제기 되기를 펜버쇼 아니 디페 산제기 때문에 발라 펜버쇼 라는 마음 발라 산제 고만 토로쇼 되게 아주 셈바데 파 야고 소야를 초를 당해지 선주 셈바이 셈바도 모르셔서 다 셈바제라 일라체바 되게 라도 순대 미고 제라도 되버다 다 개와 제조 되게 다 일라 되버 되게 당연히 일라체바들 근데 자고 되자 하고 그래도 라다 순대 미고 제라라 되버서 다 개와 제조 미고 다 개와 제조 되가나 이나야 개와 제조 디 아니 배다 그는 잡았다 동해도 저거 심지 대화다 대마들이 제거 섬리나 일에 제거세
the
제거 쇼
oh,
대화지 배는 배다 심 미고 지라바 대화도 동해지를 봤더니 대화다 대마쇼 동해도 제거 쇼 섬리 일에 제거세로 다 레버디기 다 레버디 간지로다 유나원시 숨 제가 너 지금 이거 라도를 이용도 줘 어디 간다 마 대화대 아니 바다 배 심지 치다가 지금 미만 앞에 라라는 셴을 라다 셴도 쳐버지 아니 셴 심지 지금 미는 콜페 동에 다 버셔 대화도 대버셔 마스 미버드 대화는 대화대 거기 심지 임발라야 아니 심지 치다가 지금 미면 대버셔스라나 아니 레버도 어디지 미버시는 공자로 죄송 레버도 되오랑 참았어 내가 어디가서
아니 제자바직 라나니 강사 제자바직 라니 미그네 아니 동아 사와쇼로
선나지도
네
미버디 강사 제자바직 삼로와 아니 대화도 두면 거가 있나 아니 레버 이바베지나
then yila cheba de ya de jamba da ne janju bisim de ne mi chejaba chigla ne ke chukwa
제자바 제가 제자바랑 제주마다 거기 미버디 제는 미버 지과자 다 거기 대화도 대마쇼 동해도 태워쇼 삼삼시 어떻게
then yila cheba da reba da jaba cha ne
맞다 미버 그니디 미버 지부디 미버 심지 지다를 맹자 지금은 미버 제자바서 마시하기나
de ne reba de jaba that's it
미버 셈이 유 저와 지당 저와 미국 셈제를 그리고 지고 있네요. 그 셈제 찍으면 동해의 대화도 동해의 대화 삼나. 그래서 상당히
then meditating, meditate such that a virtue for which you are responsible, you feel it relevant as a pleasurable sensation that you have been exposed to expressions conveying shunyata. You've heard them. It's very constructive that you have, and that it is constructive would be cause for a feeling, cause the feeling to arise. With virtue as the object of awareness, cause the feeling that it tends to arise. And then with discernment, since the quality, the distinguishing mark of that virtue and its intensity, whichever this virtue for which you are responsible, was it so great or was it not as great as it might have been? Its intensity, its quality as a virtue have applied discernment to the quality of the virtue. This then the mental factor of discernment. And the third mental factor in meditation then the mental factor of intention. Intend that the virtue, connected with the virtue, there be the inclination of the mind to the well-being of others again. And that the Buddha Dharma remain for many eons to come. That one achieve the ground of Buddhahood. This then being the inclination of the mind and the virtue that it is object. And then in the mental engagement, the mental factor of mental engagement, that mental engagement that mental engagement would be with the general sentient life that the virtue might cause for them, their experience of contentment, the alleviation of their pain. Particulars there engaged through mental engagement, and then in contact, intensify the particular quality of this with a particular individual, differentiating between self and other, and with this particular individual, directing the virtue to be cause for their experience of contentment and the alleviation of their particular pains, then these 5 mental factors might be meditated upon in this way. Now we'll meditate here for a minute. A minute here.
yes. 나는 심중 거는 공대 스타티지. 아니 다 산이 다 들어지만 아니 다 심중 군도 차다 래과 래과가 융이 와서 다 융이 됐으면 중 와서 어디 거지 잘했어.
That was the meditation with 5 omnipresent mental factors as a basis for the meditation. And then this completes then the 5 omnipresent mental factors. And we follow this by description of the mental factors with a determinate object. This left for next week then.
Yes, I'm telling you that
Now we will close with our closing recitations and then we break.
Yes. Lome mare ke zon do wa ye na de ja we ombo te ma sumbe sera kundu yang jambe yang ji ze we ji song te me rimba kunzang lam ji cho ye ne ru be ye na ye ji sho rang ye ji jin ko be lang ye chu da te we ta ge Roe yike mamba seje, gawe temba yin chik, temba rinjin shoge ma gyabon, gyagyan nyambara gyue chodane. Yinje chenpo yira gyoba yi, tende tende zawara jepar. Seje gawe me jong chen le, legru janju lanje rinpe gyan. Tardu nange yela bedejing, yawe seba rindu yonggirchik, lansan drube tingen drujejing, gegin seje mida mimingun, sera kundu yawe ngapayi, namda landan reware magirchik, kanse teba shola shushuzu, shujin rula zumbandeze, Tuden nange tadu rojeji, raji gyaso chugun gyogirunji. From my 2 collections, vast the space that I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds, wisdom, eyes blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my life's manjushri. May I find the best of the paths of the complete teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing, using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion. May I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings, with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent path never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. And whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the 10-fold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Dagi jini sabe jewa di
Dendam rowa kunda kampendam, kevara jizun lozan traba yi, tembe nyembo rindu sete jo,
kare
rawe kurwe shingrande, pendam dewa malu jumwe, Shinre ziwan de zengya soyi, shabe side barde dengirche, jambe bawo enje gamba dam, kundo zambo de yande shin, eda kunge jesu daloje, yawa de da tamje radu, kuzun jebe yawa tamje, kangla chodu mabaje, Lagi gewe tawan digun, sambo jeje rado warge, sanjo senjo rimbo je,
Madhyavana Jiyo Yewa Nyamba Mevaye
I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential beings of Venerable Losandra Bodhisattva in the land encircled by snowy mountain. You are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Shinras and council, please remain until cyclic existence. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are. Also, I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these virtues with a dedication praised as the best by the victorious Askan ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva deeds. May the supreme jewel of Bodhisattva that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Thank you. Good night.